Hmm.
Thank you. All right.
Good. Okay, so I'm Bob Turner. I'm vice chair. And Nancy, unfortunately, our chair, got exposed to COVID yesterday or the day before. So I don't think she's got any symptoms yet. She may be joining us virtually. So I have the honor of leading this meeting. So please bear with me. This is the first one I've led in this group. So we've got an agenda. You all got a copy of it. And we'll officially call the meeting to order. So item 2 on the agenda here, Nancy is going to discuss the conflict of interest. I'll read this.
Yeah.
In the interest of preserving public confidence in the actions of this board, the chair reminds members of their duty to avoid any conflicts of interest in inquiries as to whether any member knows of any conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest with respect to matters to come before the board. So I think that's pretty clear. Anybody have any questions about that? So we'll start by approving the.
Bob, sorry to interject, just because Martha is new and she doesn't know who everyone is, and she's doing our minutes for us today. If we can, before we do the votes, hop around the room, introduce yourself, who you are, and a sentence or so about your experience, and then she'll be able to kind of hopefully, and then also maybe as you vote, you can be like, I vote, motion Bob or something like that, and that'll help her. But although we have 2 Bobs, so.
That's good.
Awesome. Would you like to start?
Sure, okay. Sure. So I'm Bob Turner. I have a small farm in Arden, North Carolina here, and write a column for an old hippie magazine called Mother Earth News. Y'all remember that one? So that's what gets me involved with food and farming, that kind of stuff.
Bruce Schlesinger. I'm a member of an HOA that recently is in the process of conserving our fields.
Matt Fusco, landscape architect in Nashville. Been around for a little while.
Bob Gale, retired from Mountain True a couple years ago, and have a little business called Restore Flora, Gale Botanical Consulting.
I'm David Tuck. I'm with Equinox. We're an environmental planning and design firm.
Jess Lagas with Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy. I do our farmland preservation work. It was nice to meet you on the farmland roundtable. Nancy Edgerton. I was a volunteer with SAHC for many, many years, including being president of the board.
I'm Hannah Coates. I'm a Riverlinks Land Resources Manager.
Ariel. Sweet, thank you, I appreciate that. Now we can roll
Well,
on.
let's have Martha.
Oh, yeah, Martha, sorry.
Hi everyone, I'm Martha Ross. This is my second month in this position. But prior to joining the team here, I worked for Land Trust out western North Carolina, out in Franklin, for about a year and a half. And then before that, I was working with the Land Trust up in Maine. So I've done my fair share of land cons, and I was in stewardship before, so I've gotten my hands dirty. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're excited to have her. It's been fantastic so far. So, awesome.
So
I
welcome.
am Angelica. I'm your communications and engagement friend, and I help live stream a lot of our board meetings.
Perfect.
Great, well, it's exciting to have Martha join us. You got some big shoes to fill, but you came right into the middle of craziness. So we have a lot ahead of us. You also saw some of the emails from Ariel, some projects on the horizon here. So we'll dig right into it. I guess the first item here would be to approve the agenda for today, and then you're going to motion to do that.
I'll make a motion.
Bruce seconds it.
Thanks, guys.
Approval of minutes from September 18th, 1894. Y'all remember those? Okay, that's been a year.
Yeah, right?
Crazy. Do we need to review those? Or
They are attached in your packet and they were emailed out. So it, yeah.
So we had a lot going on before the shutdown, and we're going to pick that all back up. So I'm sure we'll get a refresher in anything that was left open. It's time for public comment. Is there anybody in the public here that would like to comment? Is there anybody joining us?
Oh, we have to,
minutes.
thank you.
Nancy,
Nancy approves the minutes. Then.
move to approve the minutes.
And we need to,
Are you moving to do that? Take a second.
Second.
Bob,
Anybody else?
there you go. Okay.
thank you.
For that. So we did approve the minutes from the last meeting in 2024. Now public comment. Anybody online?
We don't have any connected callers.
So item 6, board chair and vice chair selection. Am I getting kicked off here? What?
Right, no. So typically, yeah, you're out. No, so, and I think we probably should table this until next meeting since Nancy's not here. It's good to have everyone around. But this is just standard practice. Usually we do this in January, re-election of officers for every calendar year. And it's really just touching base. Are you feeling like you're still willing to serve in that role? You know, and in addition to that, is your position, you know, is your term expiring? And if that's the case, we'd have to, you know, I guess re-elect or re-vote on a new chair or vice chair. So I can give I know I can kind of go into talking about the term piece.
This is probably a good time.
If you want. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let me share what I sent via email so that we are able to take a peek. Okay, all right. Unfortunately, I can't get it bigger than that. So anyways, this is essentially the snapshot of folks who have terms expiring. So before people freak out, you know, obviously we haven't met in a year. And so the clerk to the board understands that piece. And so they have gone ahead and posted the 4 vacancies online so we can start receiving applications, review them. But until your position is filled, you are able to continue to serve. So it could be months and months and months in reality for us to get good candidates. So it's still all, you know, all safe to continue to vote and represent as chair and vice chair until we have those positions filled. And we also know this is a big transition to lose some of these board members that have been on the board for a while. And our hope is that it doesn't happen quite this way again. But it it is because 2 or 3 years ago, we had to do that resolution, which actually gave you guys terms when before you didn't have terms and you were able to serve for many years. And that was fantastic. And we also have to follow the county rules now that they have those rules. So the rules for now are that you can have 2 consecutive terms, and a term is for 3 years. So you can serve on the board for 6 years, and then you have to leave the board for just 1 year, and then you can hop back on if you want to, if there's a vacancy. So that's the plan. And Matt pointed out that for some reason they have his term as 1, and we know he's done more than 1 term. So that is an error on their end. So his also expires because it also says it's expiring. So I checked in with that, and that is an error on their end. So that being said, there are no specific stipulations for these positions after we did that update. I mean, the hope is that they have experience and understanding of land conservation, or they're within the environmental sector. And so start looking for people that you think would be good board members. You can send them to me, or I can send out the link to the online application. And then the clerk to the board will collect all those applications. She'll send them to me. I'll send them out to you guys. You can review them. We can discuss them at a future meeting. And then the way that works is that then the LCAP board members vote to recommend a few people to the commissioners, and the commissioners do the actual appointment. So, yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can members from the Ag Advisory Board come to this board without a 1-year break and vice versa?
Yes.
Just 'cause
Yes.
it's-
Separate
there's a lot of
boards.
skills.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
How does that board look now? Is it in a position like we are, lots of people rotating off?
No, right now we are all good on the term side because we had already been following the term rules on Ag Advisory Board. It's because we follow the Farmland Preservation Ordinance that the county has. We were always required to do those rules. LCAP was a bit of a gray area, just because we didn't have an ordinance to follow, and so yeah. We have 1 vacancy on the Ag Advisory Board, if anyone wants to apply. And we have a regional requirement for Ag Advisory Board. So this vacancy on Ag Advisory is for the Candler, Arden, like Hominy area. So if you reside within that area, you would be eligible to apply for this position. We have like the county drawn up in like 4 different quadrants. And so we want to make sure we have at least 1 representative per area on Ag Advisory. So you might be eligible for that if you're interested. Not to throw you under the bus or anything. Anywho, so that's the gist of this transition. The question I need to get clarity on, is it 1 year from the date of your expiration, or is it 1 year from when we fill your position that you have to be on? So anyways.
With the rate of
Questions?
abusing my 21-year membership on this board, I'm willing to continue to serve until being replaced.
Thank you. We hope you're all willing to serve until you're replaced, because otherwise quorum's gonna get hard. Yes.
Given the knowledge base of the folks in this room and the other board members, is there an opportunity for someone to be transitioned in an ex officio?
Thank you, Bruce. This is exactly what I was talking to Nancy about. So Nancy was very concerned about not being on board because she's very passionate. Other Nancy, yes. And so I said, the board can technically vote to make an existing board member an ex officio or an associate board member, and they can continue to join the meetings. And join in discussion. They just can't vote. And so that isn't that's an option to stay involved for that year gap, and then maybe be able to rejoin, or for as long as you want. So that's just something.
That'd be great.
You can also not be the chair or the vice chair. You can't lead the meeting.
That would be great because it keeps some of that history knowledge.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it looks like, we have four members who are rotating off sooner than later, but there's 5 members that are just on their first term, so they've got at least another 3 years. So anybody that comes in soon, they would rotate off in 6 years. So we do have kind of a little bit, it'd be better if it was staggered
A little bit.
by people.
Yeah.
Not instead of groups.
Yeah.
But at least we'll have some consistency as we go forward.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for explaining that.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we all should just kind of put our feelers out there for people we know to see if we can bring them in. Good, so we're on to item 7 now on the agenda. An update from the Land Conservation agencies, and as we're getting into the meat of it. So who wants to go first?
And this won't be your presentation. This is just like
Sure,
general
just
updates.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I can go first. Yeah, so, kind of in response to the Hurricane Riverlink, we launched an entire kind of new arm to our organization that is being led by our executive director, Lisa Raleigh, calling it Recovery, Resilience, and Planning. This is focused a lot on kind of the River Arts District area as well as the Swannanoa. Lisa, she's working hard on this sort of shredding process that she's calling it. It's going to be a series of stakeholder meetings with folks in the River Arts District to see if we can incorporate some kind of group agreed upon changes to make it more resilient for future flooding. In addition to that, we also just created with Wildlands Engineering this incredibly detailed study and assessment with recommendations for going forward for the restoration and improvement of what we're calling the Middle Swannanoa. It's kind of near the Warren Wilson area. So yeah, a lot of work going on in that field. We've also launched an Adopt a Stream program in January, and we repaired, I forget the total number that we did, but thousands of linear feet of private property streams. So we got grant funding, and our staff and volunteers are actually able to go out to people's homes and repair their streams for them. This is kind of small scale repair with hand tools, live staging, things like that. So that's been really great. And then for the actual land trust side of things, funnily enough, in the meeting minutes from last year, I had an update on Gateway Park. I still have an update on Gateway Park because we were delayed in a year and actually starting to build that park. But we're really excited to be working with Equinox and actually initiating the design, hopefully in the next month, to actually design the park. And then we're hoping to complete this in summer of next year. And for a reminder, this is a property that Riverlink owns on Riverside Drive, at Pearson Bridge there, that corner. So it's sort of really, an area, corridor with a lot of destruction, but we're gonna, we had funding, and so we're going to continue and just build this park and kind of create hopefully a little beacon of hope in that really devastating corridor. In addition, we also have a potential new opportunity for another pocket park. We own a property in East Asheville on Azalea Road, kind of near the soccer complex. And before the hurricane, it was really forested. It was just a riparian buffer, doing its thing, holding its bank together, providing habitat, all that. But a lot of the mature trees were like wiped off site, just from the power of the Swannanoa. And now we're kind of left with this open area and a bit of a beach access to the river. And we thought it could be, beneficial for the community if we can kind of incorporate some like really passive recreation there, while the whole soccer complex, Azalea Park, all of that is still offline for several years. And we'll also do, of course, some restoration work out there. There's river cane on the site, so we're really excited to kind of foster that and add some more trees back. And then, yeah, otherwise, Karen Craig Nolan Park that we've been managing for several years now is doing awesome. If y'all haven't been through there, the meadow looks really, really great. Thanks to our partnership with Patchwork Meadows. Yeah, so just managing parks, creating new parks, and lots of other things. So, yeah.
It's great.
Can I ask you about the restoration work for individual landowners?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
How that works, if we know people that might.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for asking. So yeah, our Adopt a Stream program, we have a webpage on our website. And so if folks have like a stream that's experiencing like erosion, then they can go and fill out a form, and we'll go out and assess the site and see if it's a good fit for the program. We're pretty like lenient on like the size of it. I think we're shooting for like 100, 200 linear feet on average, but we can do more or less too. Yeah, so if you know anyone who's like having trouble with their stream or just wants some advice on how to better manage it, definitely check out that program.
I'm assuming it's for like more of the smaller, like the
Yeah.
like smaller scale, but and not severely eroded.
Right,
because you
right.
can't
There is some
do the
distinction on our
engineer and
website.
all of that. Okay.
Yeah, so we're doing repair as opposed to restoration here. So it's like literally our staff will go out, hand grade if needed, do the foyer matting, live stake seating, that kind of work. And we're happy to give like recommendations if there's a more severe erosion as well. But
What like geographic area are you?
that's a great question. So we're focusing on Henderson, Buncombe, Madison, Yancey counties. We've mostly been working in Buncombe, just I think that's where we're most known. So people have heard about it the most, but we are doing all those work.
Henderson, Buncombe, Yancey.
And yeah, Madison. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great program. I'm really glad it's been going well for us. Yeah.
I think my dad participated.
That's great. Yeah, love it.
Is that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm still on your feet.
Very good.
So since we last met, SHC's had two exciting closings in the county. One was the Richmond Hill Park addition property near the Elm Sanctuary in Richmond Hill Park. And luckily, my colleague Michelle is online, and she was the lead on these projects, so she might be able to give us a little more flavor of what that project is all about, as well as the Starnes Cove High Top property. And don't believe this board participated in the Richmond Hill Park, but I don't know the Starnes Cove. Okay.
No.
Michelle, do you want to say anything about this project? Not to.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I've not been well. Yeah, the Richmond Hill property, I think people about it in the news. It was purchased by a developer who then sold it to another developer. It is adjacent to Richmond Hill Park and fronts the French Broad River. And we were able to negotiate a purchase from the second developer to save that from becoming subdivision. So SAHC's long-term plan is to eventually transfer the property to the city of Asheville so that it can become an extension of Richmond Hill Park. It currently is within the municipality of Woodfin, so there needs to be some work to annex the property back into the city of Asheville and then transfer title. But we expect to own it for maybe the next 5 years. It does have significant hurricane blowdown. So it's really not safe for people to visit at this time. It's going to be probably a long process of getting that ready for, for public access. And the Starnes Cove High Top property is it's in just west of the city limits, and it's about one valley west of the Deaver View Mountain property that SHC is also working on acquiring and protecting. And that was a feasible purchase that we plan to own for the long term. And it does rise up to the high top peak. And I'm sorry, I don't have the acreages on the top of my head right now.
They're big.
Nice. Michelle, can you give just a brief update on where we're at with Deaver View project?
Sure. Yeah. So Deaver View Mountain is the 342 acre property that is on Deaver View Road, and it contains a lot of people know it as Spivey Mountain, but that is actually a different mountain peak owned by a different person. But so that property was purchased by a partner of SHC's who's also a conservation lender, and they purchased the property to take it off the market. They're holding it until SHC and Buncombe County jointly are able to raise approximately $8 million to buy the property, and then it will become a Buncombe County park, a public park, the largest by far. So where we are right now, and the most exciting news, I think, that I've had recently is that Buncombe County has received a grant agreement from the Federal Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership program, which is funded through the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And right before the new administration took office, we were kind of getting ready to get our formal approvals, and we've now finally just received that for over $4 million. That's going to be half of the purchase price. And then SHC obtained a grant from the Land and Water Conservation Fund through the state, and for the other approximate $4 million purchase price. So where we are right now is working through grant administration for both of those large grants. And we are hoping that we will be able to close before the end of this year. And when I say we, SHC is actually going to be like a pass-through entity for the funding, and Buncombe County is going to purchase the property directly. We're able to do that because the federal money came through. So we had applied to the Buncombe County Open Space program for $1 million. We had a backup plan in case the federal money did not come through. So we now no longer need the $1 million that we applied to Buncombe County.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to go through the Passive Recreation Board, right?
Yeah. We had approved it.
Yeah.
And sent it on.
Yeah.
Then it all came off.
Then nothing is officially approved now because it just, yeah. Question on Deep Review, and then I know sure we can talk offline. Do you know what the plan is for funding for the improvements on the property to be able to actually like open it up and make it?
I have limited knowledge because Allison Danes is really the person in charge of that. But I will say that the open space bond did award, I think it was $7.6 million for facility improvements. And that's a lot of that is going to go to like just the road and parking. But I know that the conservation easement that the state's going to hold as a requirement from us receiving the grant from the state allows for a variety of park infrastructure, including a building to house like, a park sort of welcome center / office, storage building, restrooms, parking areas, and some like viewing platforms and stuff like that.
That's awesome. I think that there was some like, I don't know, misunderstanding about what that 7.6 was for, if it was for the purchase or improvement. So that's great. Awesome.
Yeah, it was odd because it came before we had the purchase funds.
Yeah.
So so that's great that there's money to get started with the facility improvements.
Sweet. Thank you.
Ariel, I have a question. Others may know this, but just because it's been so long, all that money in the projects we approved as the open space thing, that money just was held when Helene happened, but it's still there, right?
Still there, correct. And I don't know the update on when Passive Rec. Have you heard anything of when you're supposed to re-meet? We were told, we were always from after the storm told that it was going to be this summer-ish. So I'm assuming, relatively soon. I know there's concerns of all the folks that applied. They've now had to wait another year, and it didn't actually get approved by the commissioners. It was just recommended by Passive Rec, and so that's not technically secured. But my understanding is that through the open space bond, like budgeting and allocation, that has been like earmarked as an anticipated commitment. So, but nothing's set in stone till it's set in stone. So, yeah, that's kind of the loosey-goosey answer I have.
I figured once this committee started meeting that we would probably, technically we finished our job, but then if there was more money left over, we would be called again.
Right.
And there's $1 million we now know.
Right.
So anyway, I expect we'll probably be here pretty soon now.
And so do you remember the total of like the number that you recommended? Did you recommend all that applied?
We held back some projects which we wanted more information on. We actually liked it, and we just needed some answers on a couple things. and then Helene happens and.
Yeah.
And everything came along.
Yes.
But we approved 11 of 13 projects, if I recall.
Okay.
Fully funded.
Okay, gotcha. And I have a slide I can bring up that was at my last commissioner's presentation, was the last time they allocated open space bond funds, and it gives you kind of the status of where we are. And so that might be helpful. I can pop that up on the screen. Are we going to?
Yeah, my question is about the federal bonds that have been awarded or approved. Is there any chance of that money being clawed back, or are those actually cash in hand? I just don't know how that's all going these days.
Oh, that is a good question. I haven't heard any concerns about that. It's not cash in hand.
Yeah.
When
It's an approval.
and then we have to like essentially draw debt, you know, and then once we have, I should probably not even be saying this, but because I don't know it well enough, but like my understanding is that once we say we close a handful of easements, we're kind of fronting that money, and then once we have enough of that, we're requesting those funds from the bond. But I don't know, I haven't heard concerns, but I will say that our stance for our program and for my hope for this board is to request, get your requests in. That's why I wanted to have that calendar to show them that we have these anticipated requests coming in, because should all of those projects get approved by the commissioners, the funding left for conservation easements is getting, you know, smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's beauty in both, you know, of the projects we're doing, but in essence, we are kind of competing. So that being said, the calendar of, pop it up here while we're just chatting about it. The calendar that I shared in the email with kind of the plan for this next year.
The Excel file?
Yes, and it should be popping up right now. Okay, cool. It shows what we're requesting for this meeting, but then the projected requests for the next few. And so I believe this is going through November, and I don't think we have anything past November. So potentially we'll have, I mean, as other projects come up, other requests come up, there is the potential for those to come and request as well. We also got to have a reduced annual amount of funding for conservation easements. That was that $275,000, where we used to have $750 every year. We now only have $275, but it looks like all the transaction costs we have projected for the next few months total in $187,500, and then Ag Advisory Board will have a $65,000 request. So we'll still have a little bit of funds left from that annual allocation. I mean, goal is to allocate it all, you know, always. And so, you know, we're proving the need there. We allocate all that, and then, you know, the total request amount, and I don't have, I think I popped this in here. I don't think this is the real number. Yeah, you talk to as much as you want. I just wanted to make sure nobody, like, if they saw a different number, they're like, wait a minute, what? So long and short of it is, we have shared with the commissioners, or sorry, with the open space bond finance team, that we have a projection of about 1.3, 1.4 million coming hopefully over the next few months, and to LCAP. And so that's what we're anticipating, a request for the open space bond this next year. And then let me pop that slide that I was talking about up here. That'll show you it's perfectly in line with what I presented in September or February. So that's good. Any questions while I try to find a slide?
So, yeah, the total easement purchase acquisition funds right now, it's on our table, 777.
That would be different.
It will be different, most likely.
It would be closer to 1 million.
Can I just jump in?
Go for it.
So continuing as you see it.
Yeah, we want to
Yes.
finish.
We interject. Yeah.
So
Warren Wilson College, this, we came and received, I think, a $310,000 commitment from this board and board of commissioners for transaction costs. But as you saw, we had $500,000 earmarked for the purchase price of those easements. However, the state, because we had to submit 4 separate easement requests from the state, and they do this sort of quota system where they, is it 4 or 5? 4 sections around the state.
Oh, no, 3. I think it's Mountain. Oh, really? I thought it was Mountain View.
Okay.
Then you got it.
And so that means that even though one of those easement projects was the top ranking in the state and the rest were like off by a point, they are the 1st, 5th, 10th, and 15th ranking
because they rotate
go through and fund the top, or they put them in order by the top ones per area.
Which is great in other times when you have a lot more funding,
Yes.
and because the mountains get represented, where like with the federal program, you barely get any funding for the mountains, because they don't rotate it around. But
the great news is we got the federal funding, and that's over $3 million of the roughly $5 million purchase price. But because of that state funding, we know one of the easements will be funded, but the state budget is still, apparently they've just like passed some mini, or they're in the process of passing a mini budget that's gonna take care of immediate needs, and therefore there is no pressure to pass an actual budget. And they just passed some resolution to like come back 1 day a month until, I don't know, December. And so it's unlikely there will be a state budget this year, and none of those state projects will get funded until the state budget passes. So we're at this place where we're hoping to ask whatever gets funded out of the state trust fund, we'll use those dollars, but the other projects that don't, we would come to the bond funds and request more and just leave the state out of it in order to not add an entire year to the process, because we've got that federal funding and that's a contract that has an end date as well. So we're, and usually that's kind of interesting, sort of in the opposite problem of lagging on the federal side. So, so I won't be coming to request funds for Warren Wilson until I know that the state gets funded, and I don't know when the state's gonna get funded, but it's definitely not gonna be in September, so that's kind of a hanging.
So, but you do know that one of them will be funded.
I know one will be funded, and it's the largest and most expensive.
Okay. So, I mean, do you just come and ask for the other 3? I don't know.
So.
And then not have to use them if you don't have to use them?
That's a good point. Yeah, we could do that. I've also done the opposite. So the state also just went to this new system of having sort of a pre-application that is due at the end of this month. Normally, the application process isn't even open until mid-October. So I went ahead and put in placeholders for the 3 that we don't know will get funded so that they could be into the next year. So I think that's a great idea to go ahead and maybe request the difference, and then whatever shakes out with the state, not take it from here.
I mean, I feel like now is an okay time to, well, first of all, we want to do that before the money runs dry.
Right.
And also, with all the devastation that Warren Wilson experienced, like this is a time where like it would be helping that Sononoa community recover as well. So it could be, I don't know, it could be well received. So yeah.
That's a good point. Okay, well, in that case, we could maybe still aim for the September, and then that's a great idea. Okay. I like pre-talk.
That's what the board's for, right?
You covered a lot with your
update.
Your update, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, right.
Are you through? Do you have
with the Warren Wilson, so I think we alluded to it in previous meetings, but we are under contract with Warren Wilson to purchase the 190-acre Berea tract that's across from, if y'all are familiar with Riceville Road and Old Farm School Road, it's bounded by Riceville and Old Farm School, and that it's directly across from Berea Baptist Church, the Outward Bound facility there, and Berner Center for Early Learning. And we will, it's going to be called the Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy's Bull Creek Preserve at Warren Wilson College.
Beautiful.
You can call it Bull Creek Preserve. But that will be, it will be SHC's first fee simple project that we intend to hold for the long term that will be fully open to the public, which is exciting and new for us. A little intimidating, but Warren Wilson will continue, we're entering into a joint management agreement, and the college will continue to manage the tract, subject to SHC's approvals. And we'll co-manage, but they will take on a lot of those management responsibilities and continue to use it as part of the living laboratory of their campus at large. Which, we should probably talk if y'all have this middle Swannanoa focus.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But that will be closing on September 12th. So that's coming right up.
Exciting.
Thank you. I'm really excited.
So they'll still use it for hay production and other, or is it?
14 or 17 acres in that pasture, and the rest is wooded. They have been doing a lot of, they have a goal, there's an old white pine plantation that was just smeared by Helene. And they have a goal of slowly and ecologically soundly transitioning that to hardwoods.
Okay.
They do some of that. They do burns out there. They hope to do some more sort of passive education on some of the stand regeneration and some of the other ecoforestry work that they're doing there. They also do, I don't think they do as much non-timber agroforestry on that property, but I think they do have some areas that are planted. There may be some silviculture there. Yes, there's a lot. And they do run the cattle in that small area on a rotational basis. So that will all continue, and they'll continue to be the ones maintaining the trails for the most part.
Okay, gotcha.
And there are over 2 miles of public trails on that property, which is exciting. Yeah.
It's just a beautiful piece. It really is.
Really is a pretty.
We know this project's really near and dear to you, and we're so happy to hear it. It's moving forward, and yeah, it's awesome.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. And I guess, I think that's all. I have for updates, but lots of action at Warren Wilson right now in a lot of different ways.
Well, we touched on a lot of bases there too. So Passive Rec, that whole project that we spent a lot of time on, hopefully we'll hear something and know where that stands.
Yeah, so this slide is the slide I was mentioning from the February Board of Commissioners meeting, where we were just giving them a glimpse of where we're at right now. So this was already voted on in February. Yeah. And just that was funding 3 farm easements in the this was Candler, but Sandy Mush and then Candler area. And then this AGZ, I mentioned it probably in the past, but it's this agricultural growth zone grant that we got from North Carolina Department of Ag. And so it required a 1-to-1 match. The only way we were able to get that was because the county had agreed to matching it. So we got 1.9 million. The county matched 2.2-ish to include transaction costs. And so that came out of the bond. So that's essentially our funding. We don't anticipate coming back to the bond probably for much else. That's reserved, and we have to spend it over the next few years. It's reserved to only be used within our conservation focus areas as well. So those focus areas that we had, that the commissioners and the board had designated as their priority zones. So I just wanted to note that had come out of, and was factored in to this remaining project balance. So this is what's left. 1.3 was at that point what we were anticipating coming from LCAB. And then Inca Heritage Trail, I'm not sure if that's still on the books, but that would also have been an anticipated commitment. So after all these anticipated commitments and the existing commitment, it would be around the 10 million left. So that gives you an idea potentially for the Passive Rec. Should you guys recommend the full 10 million, that would be the lot, the bond. Right. So that being said, anticipated commitments are not set in stone, as well as the 10 that haven't been approved from Passive Rec. So if there are high priority projects, the goal is to, either to get Passive Rec to start meeting again, or to get them to LCAB and we can get them to the commissioners. So September is a good idea. I mean, that's what I hope. Yeah.
What is the full scope of Passive Rec?
Ooh, passive rec, board members want to, I can take a stab. I mean, I think the concept really is that it's open space land, sometimes protected with an easement, that's open to the public with very minimal infrastructure on it. But it has, you know, some improvements like trails, potential of a bathroom, but like really low input on the property. Yeah.
Well, some of it was to rehabilitate or repair our existing parks,
Yeah.
right? The Woodfin and so forth, so it wasn't
Exactly.
all to preserve new land, new projects, some of it was to.
It had a lot of, points to follow, like, equity, accessibility, those got, you know, that's a part of it. Where those projects would be good for that, you know. There are a lot of different things that were looked at, just like we do here, for these land conservation advisory boards.
And
We committed.
Yeah.
What was the total that we remember, was it 10 million?
I wish I could remember.
Around that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we've already made decisions that would spend that 10 million.
Right. Yeah, but the commissioners haven't voted on it. And I mean, that's like, I'm not saying that to be like, you know, I just want to be clear that, my understanding is like, who knows after Helene, like have the commissioners' priorities changed? Have the passive rec board's priorities changed?
Right.
Do you need to take a peek back at those projects and say, wow, okay, now, you know, this property is completely devastated. It's no longer an option, or, you know, or an organization is no longer an organization, you know, it's madness, but anyways, so yeah, that's just like with a little, you know, Helene screen over everything. It's like, what is reality
Very
anymore?
important factor to understand just organizationally with passive recreation is that it's sort of partnered with our Parks and Recreation Department, and they're undergoing a system-wide Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which includes passive recreation, greenways, and their parks. And so that was also delayed by Helene and the sort of like the phase 2, which would have closed out that project, along with having 2 of our parks completely destroyed, 2 of our greenways kind of sidelines that were already allocated because of damage. And so that Parks Master Plan is coming back online for phase 2, which should have technically already been done and approved. So all of that is kicking the can, so to speak, but that system-wide plan sort of says, here's what the community's priorities are now after Helene. We know what you said before Helene, and now what? And that's what this kind of phase 2 is asking, and hopefully can answer some of those questions. But well, just hearing what we know about the greenways delays, I imagine that's part of why passive rec is quiet right now.
And I think the dream world too was that we would have had that master plan before we started passive rec, because that was the point. Well, that was several commissioners' hope for passive rec, was that it would fill in gaps in other areas around the county that didn't have open space access. And so because we didn't have this kind of inventory from the master plan showing where the gaps were, it made it harder probably for the passive rec board to, you know, prioritize it in terms of the regional, you know, availability of open space land. So, but yeah, exactly, Angelica, that's spot on.
Yeah, let me interject one thing real quick.
Yeah.
Because we got with the really email that's made go beyond normal time. Does anybody have a hard stop at a particular time here?
I'll be here till 9:30.
Okay. There's your hard stop.
So we can.
Anybody else got any hard stops? So 9:30 would be the target. It was just 40 minutes to try and get through what we need to get through. So maybe we should. This was a good discussion, but we should probably try and move on.
Absolutely.
So we've had all our land trust updates, and then anything else updated from Ag and Land Resources at all?
Yes, and I'll try to keep it brief, but so, you know, our focus has been recovery work for the majority of the last year, and doing a lot of the stream stabilization, revegetation work as well. We have 2 main programs. One, we've been busting it on for the last 10 months, which is the Emergency Watershed Protection Program, which is through the federal government. We have next door, we have an entire conference room dedicated to all of the work we've been doing. So anywho, the point of that program is for sites that have severe stream bank erosion that's threatening infrastructure, roads, bridges, homes, utilities, all of that kind of thing. So we've been helping the public apply for this program, facilitating all the site visits. We've done over 550 site visits and have almost, I think, about $25 million already approved from the federal government coming to Buncombe to help facilitate the approved applications. We still have a handful that are being reviewed. It's been an incredible amount of work and will be an incredible resource to bring here. So, but that being said, those are just projects that have approvable, kind of threat to infrastructure. We know we have tons of other, stream issues that have needs for stabilization, needs for revegetation post, Army Corps cleanup. And so we're also working on addressing, meeting with all of our partners. We've been facilitating monthly meetings with all of the different stream organizations, trying to divide and conquer, not overlap too much, so that everyone kind of focuses their efforts, working with Land of Sky Regional Council to create this master map that will help document all the different stream recovery efforts that all the organizations are doing, with the hope of, hey, Riverlink's focusing on this stretch of the Swannanoa. Riverlink, we want to make sure that we have, 5 million approved for EWP in this section, so you don't really have to worry about it, and so then that kind of concept. And so that's been great because we've seen how much our partners are doing, as well as being able to share all of the potential funding coming in. So that map is still in the works, but the hope is that it helps all the stream restoration partners guide their efforts so that we really do have a success at addressing majority of that damage. And then lastly, second program that we have coming up is this program called STRAP, which is Stream Flow Rehabilitation Program. And that is through the North Carolina Division of Soil and Water. And so that does not have that infrastructure threatened requirement. And so we are in the process of collecting all the folks that weren't eligible for EWP. We're pivoting them to the STRAP program and working on getting applications for that, with the hopes of getting that organized and also prepared as they release funding at the state level. So not farmland preservation, but very important.
Your effort has been Herculean. I mean, what you guys have done through this last year, it's amazing. And congratulate you and everybody that the work that.
Well, thank you. We appreciate hearing that.
You've been able to do due diligence on this.
It's a lot.
Are you sleeping?
Yeah. And 2 kids,
And you have a baby, yeah.
It's cool. So just wanted to give you a glimpse to I know we've been on a pause for a year. Appreciate your patience with all that, and it's because we've been trying really hard to help our community. So appreciate that piece. All right, I'm done. All right, next we'll pivot to Jess. Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay. I will share.
Rather fast.
Oh, don't be.
I think we're probably okay.
We're good. I mean, we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If one person leaves, we still have a quorum, and we don't really have anything else to vote on. So it's really just, we want to make sure Matt gets all the info for the presentation. Oh, that reminds me. Okay, I printed off some of the materials that Jess sent, just in case you need to reference it while take it home with you, or reference it while she's going through her presentation. Just a quick reminder, you were sent the link for the evaluation form. We'll send it out again after this meeting. And you have access to this shared LCAB folder. Is anybody having trouble accessing that folder?
I did.
You did. Okay, we'll talk to you after and hopefully sort it out. You also have had trouble? Okay.
Not identical.
I've also had trouble accessing the folder.
Okay. So my understanding is that when you click the link, you should have to put in your email address, get a verification code, and then get in. So if you didn't get that process, we can try and help you after the meeting. And if we can't sort it out, we'll email you the stuff for this, and we'll hopefully sort it out by next time. So that's kind of our gist for as we proceed with these new project approval process. We'll do that. Have that shared folder. We'll send you those links so you can have the links in advance and after. And then by the other piece I just remembered is that we do need to schedule site visits between between now and the September meeting. So we'll be in touch and figure out the time.
Can you remind us when the September?
Yes. Let's see. I think it is the 17th. So I know also this is probably maybe the first of some of our new board members getting to go through the project approval process. So that's right? Yeah. Okay.
We have a meeting scheduled for the 17th.
We do have a meeting scheduled for the 17th.
8 a.m. here?
8 a.m. Typical meeting format is on Zoom. You guys can decide if you want to, make changes to that. That's just a simple vote to say, hey, we want to meet at 8:30 in person. I'm just dropping that hint. And so, or if you want to be in person, if you prefer virtual, that is just a simple decision of the board, and we can change all of that with the county in terms of how we publicize the meetings. So
Looks like the next meeting is on Zoom.
it is, yeah, because that's just our that is our default is having it via Zoom.
Nancy just suggested since we're just coming back, we meet in person on this one.
We don't want to keep going virtually, feel
That probably is
easiest for us all to get together.
Yeah.
And is 8 good or 8:30 better for anybody?
8:30 is always a little better.
Yes.
What, Matt, you
I would prefer 8, but because I prefer 8.
I'll go with whatever.
let's plan on keeping it 8 virtually then.
Yeah.
You guys just.
Sounds good. All right, so no change. Stay at 8 on
Yeah,
Zoom.
keep it on.
Beautiful.
So
All
is
right.
that Zoom optional, but we're also meeting in person, or is it strictly a virtual meeting?
It will be, it's strictly a virtual meeting at that point. You are welcome to come here. We are required by the county, if you have a virtual meeting, we as staff still have to be in this room projecting here because members of the public have to have in-person place to view the meeting. So it doesn't really affect us. If you want to join, we'll be
I think
here.
it would be great periodically, like 6
Yeah.
months or so, we got together in person.
Yeah.
But every meeting would be difficult for some.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
perfect.
let's-
We can do that as needed, and we can chat about that as those times come up. But I just want to, if you want to be here, it would just be with me and Martha. You're welcome. All right, let's roll.
All right, Pinnacle Mountain Slopes. So this is a fully donated conservation easement in the Sandy Mush area. It's 43 acres owned by Diana Stone. She's been talking to us for a long time. She, SHC owns a preserve behind her property, and we go through her property to access that. So we've had a long-term relationship with her. It's been very positive. She's very conservation-minded. She's had a variety of tenants who have grown out here on her property. She's done a little bit of growing herself, but she is not herself a farmer. She's in her autumn years. But
I love that.
But she does have tenants that are planning to grow out there again this season. You can go ahead and progress the slide. Thank you for driving here. So this map gives you an idea of context where we are in the landscape. And this is not on the Farm Heritage Trail, which a lot of our properties end up being on when we're out in Sandy Mush. But it is adding to a contiguous whole. You can see, I didn't even try to estimate the acreage because it gets massive the way all that land connects. But it's also providing a buffer for SHC's protected land there. And it's pretty developable. It rolls fairly well. it lays well. It's got, let's see, what was I saying here? It doesn't have a ton of important soils, which is great that she's interested in donating because she wouldn't be a classic fit for either any of our ag agency funding. But it does have 5 different tributaries to the North Churches Creek flowing through. Some of those originate on SHC's land just upslope of her, but a couple of them originate on her land as well. I think if you hit the button, we might get another priority now. Yes. No, not priority now. It is in a Wildlands Network provides a data set that shows connectivity for wildlife migrations. Tier 2 is their high but not highest priority corridor. And it also scored, this is kind of rare for ag land because of the way the Nature Conservancy produced their terrestrial resilience data. It's a little bit rare for agricultural land to qualify as above average on climate resilience, but this tract does, and I think it has a lot to do with the adjacency to all that protected land.
Is the blue already protected land?
That's right, that's the SHC, yeah, I know it's tiny. We call that the Pinnacle Knob Preserve, which is why we've done Pinnacle Knob slopes for this one.
Nice. And what's the road it's off of?
What is the name of that road? It's a man's name, Dan Ledbetter.
Okay.
Road.
Yeah.
And we would be closing this fairly quickly because we already have funding committed from private philanthropists, and then we're just seeking the remainder from this. This gives you a sense of how well it lies. That is a little creek there at Food Center. And we're lucky she wants to do veg and not a lot of livestock out here just because of how thickly water permeates that area. Let's see what else we got for photos. That's Diana there on the left. She does a little bit of mowing there. She doesn't hay. She had hogs for a short time, but I think it was her tenant. They're not there currently, but there's potential for some other small scale livestock like pastured hogs or poultry. That gives you, on the right, it gives you an idea. It does get pretty steep in the woods as it adjoins SHC's property, but it's pretty amazing that it's bounded on 3 sides by protected land. And I think that also means that the survey, I don't anticipate a lot of problems in due diligence because we already have so much of the line surveyed. Next slide, please. She also has, this is a little unique, she has her tax deferment is partly agriculture, but also partly wildlife, which is interesting. She's been talking to the tax office about what makes the most sense as she moves forward into an easement because the donation will make whatever deferment status she's using permanent on the tract.
How many acres again? Is that
43.
Okay. My understanding was the wildlife designation is from 20 to 100. You can't be over 100.
Oh, interesting. Because you can't manage.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really know. I mean, my also understanding with the PUB kind of grandfathering into that program is that they then really don't have to submit income proof in the future. Yeah. So wildlife might be the better option. But can she not do ag if she's doing that?
I think there's active management requirements for wildlife, and as she ages, she may be less capable or interested in that. Also, well, she was concerned at first because she was going to be in between tenants and wouldn't have production, and then she came out of PUB before the easement closed. But the tax office has given sort of a grace period because of Helene where they don't have to have. So I'm not sure where she's landed on her PUB and which one she's going to stick with, but she's currently in 2 forms of PUB, and we'll stick with one of those.
Beautiful. So we went here.
Let's see. So it's interesting with this because it's fully donated. SHC will not get an appraisal, but she will seek one for her tax purposes. So we're estimating just from other nearby projects that we've done recently that the easement value would be around $300,000, which is fully donated. Transaction costs are a little lower just because it's a smaller property and so much of the line has been recently, not all that recently, but that's a modern survey. And some of that is including the stewardship contribution. So that's what our private philanthropists have committed to. In addition to some of the other, sort of staff time and things that SHC raises funds for but can't seek from this board. So we're coming here for the remainder. That $37,000 represents only 10.25% of the total project cost. That's an estimate because we won't have an appraisal for that land value until the project closes. But pretty good leverage, I'd say. We will allow agriculture and commercial timber on this project. There's not a lot of forest right now, but in the event that a future landowner didn't keep the fields open and it grew up, they would have the ability to timber that in the future. We are excluding a small portion. I think that might pop up
Let's go back.
somewhere.
Right there.
There we go. So the green will be excluded. She wants the ability to put in some tiny homes for tenants. I don't know that she'll ever enact that right, but because there was a plural there, we thought better to exclude. There's also a backup septic easement in that exclusion area that serves her neighbor's house downstream. So for a couple of reasons, we thought it would be better to exclude that area. It's also adjacent to her house. She lives kind of in the wedge between the two colorful hash marked areas. Yeah, thank you, Ariel. The sort of marigold colored hash will be included in the easement, but it will be a building envelope that would allow one residence. Currently there's she's calling it a garage, but it has a bathroom and septic there. So it kind of whiffs of residence already, and she wants the ability to improve that into a full residence. So that one included area also has a small barn, so it kind of grabs it all in one go. I think that's all the critical info I have for you all, unless, does anyone have any questions about what I've presented so far?
A couple, it appears from the aerial that there's structures and they're just farm structures or parts that are in the easement area itself. Is that
right? I think there was like, she had like a little mobile sort of on skids hog shelter, and there was a chicken coop at one point. None of it's anchored in the ground. Yeah, not, and they're tiny.
And that exclusion, the green one, will that be split out from the property since it's on the perimeter? Or?
So it won't be, what we do with exclusions for the most part is, they are not subject to the easement, but we don't create a subdivision at the time of closing the easement because it allows the landowner to keep it in present use value. If they ever decide that they want to sell it separately, they would have to subdivide, do a sale.
They could.
They could.
That's 1.2 acres, that green area?
It is. That will be refined when we get out there with a surveyor. We like to try as much as possible to use geographic features to bound, just because it's more clear, especially if someone's mowing. It's a little different on this property, but when we have properties with cattle or where they're haying, it's really hard to monument in any meaningful way. So we like to, like, we might make the boundary that stream actually, because it would just be
that makes sense.
a hard boundary that's it's clear where that is for future owners. Actually, you know, and with an exclusion, we will have to sign that will be, you know, the easement boundary. So it will be refined a little bit, but 1.2-ish.
Well, it's terrific that the owners donate.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to be, and in our calculus at SHC, we really want to be responsive to community members that have the ability to do that. I think this would be a worthy project, even if we were raising funds for her, but I think especially because of the donor intent, that's big.
Since I'm a newbie to this group, with your ag easements, I'm assuming you have buffers, so if they do come back with hogs, they just can't get right down to the creek.
I think most of our language is about mowing and vegetation management along banks, not so much about animals. We always encourage fencing and keeping them out. With hogs, I mean,
That would be crazy if they let them in the creek and they also would never give it back.
And some of the easements also require, the landowner to update and follow a NRCS conservation plan. And so in those scenarios, that would be a recommended practice in that conservation.
But in theory, it's not written there, so, because it sounds like in this particular case, she's not the farmer, she's having people come in and farm. She could have someone who puts some animals out there and there's potentially no control.
She could, well, I mean, and if she was concerned about that, she could call the land trust and they could be, not the bad guys, but they could be like, hey, you're not following, best management practices on your operation. That would be caught in a annual monitoring visit as well. But yeah, she's still the land manager, so those things could happen. A lot of times it's part of like the education of the process of an easement to, share that that's what's expected. But
And also, if there were 5 hogs in the river there in the creek, the downstream impacts of that are less than that becoming a 1 house per acre development and the impervious surfaces that would be created there. So there's a cost benefit analysis of relationship, having an enforceable easement, having, that's part of why we allow the conservation plan to rule on those things and to guide, because it needs to be nimble and easements are sort of set in stone.
The other piece that we lead with the carrot, not the stick, so if there was a scenario where just, had an easement like that, she could reach out to Soil and Water, we would get in touch with our soil conservationist, and we could get the program. We have a program called the Enhanced Voluntary Ag District. So we could get the project in the EVAD program, and then our cost share programs could help fence out cattle or hogs from the creek at a 90% cost share, where we pay 90, the landowner pays 10. So there's beautiful ways to figure out these solutions, but getting the property protected first is that huge big step, and then typically that opens up all kinds of increased ranking and other cost share and conservation programs to help actually implement those practices.
Sun and shining right in our eyes.
Tell me if it helps you, because I think it's
It's still coming.
Only other question I have is, with the forest management allowances, will they be able to do that within forested areas as well? Or just in response to a field?
Oh, no, it's full forest. They would have to, she doesn't currently have a forest management plan because she doesn't have enough forest to bother, but if it grew up and if there were any intent to do a harvest, they would have to do the other.
They would do it, but they can do it within the forested and.
Yes, yes, they could. And that would require a forest management plan, a harvest plan, oversight by our stewardship team. We've got a pretty robust requirements for a commercial harvest.
Okay, we've got one more presentation. Jess, are you done, you think?
I think so, unless there are further questions. Can you just double check that I don't have any sneaky slides behind? Okay, great. Thank you.
Before we move on to the next one, which Michelle, is she still here? She'd be presenting. Let me just point out something to the newer people, that the next step in the process would be, we watched the presentation. Congratulations, you saw the first one. Great job, Jess. Then we'll go to online. We'll do the review. So you'll get a link, and you rate it, and it's a point-based system. And do you want to take just a couple, because we don't want to get on for you. So that system, we kind of worked that out last year. Can you just highlight how that works real quick?
Yes, and so you can do it in 2 ways. You can, if you're going to join on that farm visit, you can wait until after you join the farm visit if you want to have that full picture. If you know you're not going to be able to attend the farm visit, you can go ahead and do that. But essentially, we have 2 different evaluation systems. One is farmland specific, and I'm assuming, do you want it to be the farmland specific one?
I think so.
Okay, then may have to resend a link out. So stay tuned. This afternoon you will receive updated links. And so we have one that's farmland specific for those, because one ranking system doesn't fit all the variety of projects that we see here. And then we have one that is more the, kind of general ranking evaluation system, which is what we will use for Michelle's project. And so essentially you have all the presentation and backup info in that shared folder. And you've seen the presentation, you've been to the visit, then you go in, you evaluate it by the time of the next meeting so that we have a chance to then compile all the evaluations, do an average, and then share how it ranked. So that's kind of the gist of it. We evaluate all of those kind of priority areas that LCAP has made their priority since the very beginning of time.
Typically, we rank in the 75.
Yes.
So it's hard to, it's kind of subjective a little bit.
Right.
But when we come together next month, we'll be voting
Yes.
on this project. So you'll have time to do the site visit. I don't know if that's been scheduled yet or not. If you want to go out to see it, then you do your evaluation. We come together. We look at how everybody else kind of ranked it, and then we vote. So that's the process.
Yes.
So
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So Dream World, we plan both of these on the same day, so that then it's just like kind of a one commitment for board members, and we go from one visit to the next visit. That's what we do with Ag Advisory. It makes it easier that you don't have to divide up, but if we have to do it on 2 different days, it's fine.
We're indebted to Land Trust and the county folks, doing all of this work, so that when it comes to us, it's easy to review it. Thank you for all that.
So like next month, we'll see 2 projects, one was in Hawk Creek, and we'll also vote on both of these 2 projects.
Correct.
So that's kind of how it will work from now to several months.
Exactly.
So if there are any time then we can answer any other questions, but Michelle, you ready to go with the next one? This is North McDarish project.
I'm ready. Can you guys see the screen with the presentation?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. So the project is North McDarish Ridge. This is a conservation easement. I usually keep this just of our focus areas. Okay. So this property here is 55 acres, and it's a fully donated conservation easement. It joins the South McDarish Ridge conservation easement that this board approved a grant for a couple years ago. And so that's shown here in this dark blue. The other dark blue are other conservation easements that SHC owns. The big one is the Woodfin watershed. And this light blue is our Reams Creek Bowl Preserve. And we are working, this little purple piece right here is, it's a similar color from something else in the legend, but this is another tract that SHC is working on purchasing right now. This trail is the Snowball Mountain Trail. So that it runs along the boundary of Pisgah National Forest. So it's very close to a large network of protected land. This large purple is the Asheville watershed. And we've got the Blue Ridge Parkway and Mountains to Sea Trail running right here. So this is within that Wildlands Network connectivity corridor, the Tier 1, the highest level. The Reams Creek Bowl property also is overlaid by a natural area that's identified by the state Natural Heritage Program. And the Woodfin watershed also has a natural area on it. It's overlaid by the Audubon Society's Black and Great Craggy Mountains Important Bird Area. And it is very close to the beach community, which has a lot of historical features. So the property, there's 4 tributaries to Reams Creek, which is classified as trout waters by the Division of Water Quality. So a couple of those streams form the boundary, one on this sort of eastern side and another one on the southern side. This hatched area right here is a building area that contains the landowner's existing home, and the landowner is Kathy Triplett. She is a local ceramic artist, and so her ceramic studio is in the building area, her home and a guest house and like a shed and support building. She also has, you can sort of see in the aerial right here, an apple cider orchard, and the building area will reserve the right to build one additional small home that she is anticipating will house a ceramic artist intern. Excuse me. So the property rises to 4,500 feet at the peak here. And there is on the adjoining property, there's a high elevation acidic glade that was identified. And it looks, I haven't been up to the tippity top of this property, but it does appear that there are some high elevation rock outcrops there. So there may be some significant habitat consistent with what's on the adjoining property. And it ranks above average for climate resilience. There may also be some rare habitat for the superb jewelweed and timber rattlesnake, and that's just based on natural heritage data, so it's not been confirmed on the property. The conservation easement would most likely, we're thinking it's going to prohibit commercial timber harvest, but it will allow for timber management for non-commercial purposes pursuant to a forest management plan. So this is just a 3D image, so you can see how it lays in the landscape. There's 2 parcels, as you can see, and then it rises up to that ridge, and it can, the McDarris Ridge. And the beach community center is like right down here. And this is Blackberry Inn Road running right along here. There is, some potential, I think, for making this part of our outings program with the landowner's permission, of course, but I think there may be some local interest in getting to see her art studio. And, for people who are a fan of the local Appalachian art that she produces. And I've got some pictures of it here in a second. This is actually the Camp Sequoia conservation easement property, and just showing the visibility of McDarris Ridge. So the South McDarris property that we already protected is on the right side, and then the North McDarris is down here. So this is just showing the potential building area, reserved home site location. She's got a solar array and the apple right next to the apple orchard. So that's all within the building area. And I love her art, so I had to include some pictures in her art studio. These are her very whimsical teapots. And these are her interpretation of snake catchers that she's made. And I think that's probably the last slide I have. Oh, no, sorry, the project funding. So this is a picture of Kathy in front of the guest house that she has within the building area. So the total budget for the project is $223,000. That includes mostly the donated value of her conservation easement that is matching funds for this grant request. We estimated the transaction cost to be about $73,200, and we're asking the Land Conservation Advisory Board to support $42,200. That's a little bit less than the budget item on the slide that Ariel showed earlier. I think it was, we had estimated $46,000. So we're coming in a little bit less than we had projected. The remaining transaction costs not being sought through this board is committed through a private landowner a private philanthropic donation. So this request represents about 18.9% of the project budget, leveraging 81% of total project cost. And I think, yeah, that's the that is the summary. Happy to entertain any questions.
Yeah, Michelle, I like seeing this new addition to some of these things. Climate resilience, how is that determined? Who determines that? Is there a specific process for saying this is climate resilient?
Yeah, the Nature Conservancy has a GIS model for climate resiliency, and it covers, I think it covers the whole Appalachian region. And yeah, it ranks it on a very statistical scale for climate resiliency, but it is got a lot of data going into the input for that. And a lot of these high elevation mountains rank as above average for climate resilience.
Michelle, what's the low elevation on that property? You mentioned it goes above 4,500. I'm curious about where the elevation is now.
Yeah, it looks like the bottom is about 3,100 feet at the lowest. Yep. And we've been talking to this landowner, Kathy Triplett, for over a decade, probably longer. She's been wanting to preserve the property for quite a long time, and the time has finally happened. We're finally here.
So Michelle brought up a couple of things here for the new people again. That she talked about watersheds. We looked at streams a little bit. Talked about the visibility, high elevation visibility. So these are items you'll see on the evaluation form. So sometimes they're entered in the meeting, sometimes they're in a packet, sometimes it's not clear, And so how do we score those when you're not sure? When we talked about this, do you remember, was it just give it a 5? Because if you give it a 0, it brings the whole score down. And that's just because you don't know the answer.
Well, and our hope is that we're honing the process so that land trusts know now kind of what that evaluation system is. We've made it so that there's a variety of required things that they put in their application and their presentations. The hope is that you do have the answer in your materials. Otherwise, you can ask the question, you can reach out to Jess or Michelle.
Site visits help a great deal. That's why we encourage everybody to go.
Yeah. So yeah, that's still, that's the area where there's still some, subjectivity.
Yeah, so you got a deadline, you got to score it.
Yeah.
We're gonna vote on it. And if you're not sure, you give it a 10 or you give it a 5, we should have some kind of guidance, I guess. If you give it a 0, it's going to.
Well, and I think that the update, I'm trying to remember, it's been so long. It's been a year. So I believe that the last time we updated this form, we put guidance around what a 5 means. We put guidance around what a 1 means and what a 10 means. And so I believe that we kind of hopefully made some rough guidance around what each of those answers would mean. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of variety of projects, and you end up with a 75. What does a 75 mean?
Yeah.
Right. And so, we have this evaluation system to show we are thinking about all of these, pieces of the puzzle. And sometimes fantastic projects don't score fantastically, but there's the intangibles that we know make a project a great project. So it's not a make it or break it. There's discussion ensues on after we evaluate it through our system, and the board ultimately is the decider of what gets approved.
So, I was just going to say, I'll say that historically, over the years, the whole group, even if one person scored something low, everything evens out high, and the projects, I think they're just about all going through. It's very rare that we have scored the project good enough.
Right. And maybe that's a time we'll see in the future that who knows, Helena's changed budget stuff, and maybe budget will be tighter, and if we spend out all the funds, but who knows, we might need to get more selective, and we can't, fund everything. But, certainly certain projects, especially like donation projects like this, where they're only asking for transaction costs, it can be a bit of a no-brainer sometimes.
I would also just say, a lot of the other funders that we work with, granted, they have paid staff that are doing these reviews, not volunteer boards, but those staff have already gone through and done their ranking and their review before the site visit, so that any remaining questions or lack of clarity, that's the opportunity for them to get clarity. And but then I guess like sharing, and then the way they share that back out, I'm thinking of ADFP specifically, is then at the next board meeting before voting, well, I don't even think they vote then, because they just rank, and then they discover who gets funded by the state budget. But then at the next board meeting, they kind of present to the rest of the board members, like, this is what we found, this is, and it helps fill in some of those gaps that are already left.
So I got one quick question for Michelle. So in this case, the owner would do an appraisal themselves, since it's also a donation, not a.
Yes.
And so the numbers that you guys have derived are based on assumptions from the area and other land values, or how did you get to that?
Yeah, well, we have a great comp right next door of the South McDarris Ridge property that we completed just 2 years ago. So I basically looked at the valuation for that, the appraisal for that property, and borrowed those values for this, which I think is pretty very similar estimate.
The reason I asked that, and this is more for the group, is when we're considering all the conservation values and the cost and how much is being allocated or asked for, especially if we've got a packed room of projects, those are considerations that I take into account. Also developability, if it's not conserved in those things. This would be a steep slope area, also associated with a high elevation ridge, and there's protections in Logan County for that. That doesn't mean it ranks less in my view. It's just a consideration that I look at in terms of
what are the risks? What's going to happen to that?
Right.
I'm not saying it makes it less valuable. It's important in my mind. It's just something that we consider. And if we do have a $250,000 quote unquote budget and we have 6 projects, we're going to get there a lot more quickly than we have in the past.
True. Yeah. And a big, like a perk too about our team getting that agricultural growth zone grant is that we won't be tapping into majority of the transaction cost budget for this year, because we have that covered in those funds. So our hope is that that allows LCAB to have that flexibility, because we used to kind of split the 750. And so my hope is that means that we'll be able to fund LCAB's projects, transaction cost projects specifically through that. Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate it.
I'm a little confused with the last thing you said.
Yes.
I heard earlier there's a $275,000 budget for LCAP.
Correct.
But then there's already money in the coffers beyond that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I said it kind of very confusingly. So our program, the Farmland Preservation Program, last fall applied for a big state grant. That state grant, essentially, if you have funding you can ask for up to $2 million, you have to match it 1-to-1. So that's why we asked for that significant amount of bond funds, that like the slide that I showed. Yeah. And so with that funding, if we pursue only projects in those agricultural growth zones that we've designated, all of our projects can be funded through that pot of money. So we wouldn't be tapping into the annual allocation that's for easements that the county funds, because we've gotten AGZ and bond funds secured for all those projects, and that includes transaction costs. So typically all of our projects are funded through the annual allocation, and we have one project that we're anticipating that's not in those growth zones, that we would be coming to the county to fund, and then the remainder of that 275 would be able to be used by the LCAP projects that you guys bring. So it would be around, I don't know, 200 grand of the 275. So my hope is that means, and from the, let's see if I can, from the slide, let's see, the Excel that I shared, I think that the existing transaction cost requests were like 180 or something like that. So the numbers work out beautifully,
Okay.
is where I'm going with that. Of the existing projects we have on our radar, other ones pop up, there's
So
still.
there's wiggle room for those other projects.
Exactly. Yeah, there's about 22 grand or something of wiggle room.
Is that $1.9 million grant, I mean, that's just for this year, but is it possible to get it again in the
Yes,
future?
and that's our goal. That's why we're kind of fixating on allocating all of those funds from that grant, so that we can then, our hope is that we can then show that we're implementing it fantastically, and then ask again in 2 years. And then there is a potential that when we ask again in 2 years, I don't know if they'll increase it to 2 million, more than 2 million. We'd have to have bond fund match for that. So the bond might be out unless we have another bond come, that comes again and we can match it. So I don't know if we could get the 2 million, but there also is the potential to reapply again in partnership with our land trust and be able to subcontract out that, individual request as long as it's within those areas. And it has to be in that initial kind of proposal that we would use it for partnership easements as well. So there's potential, but we have to have that 2 million match. But I mean, our initial thought was it's a fantastic way to make those bond funds go, twice as far. And not have to go through the annual cycle and compete like we were seeing that Warren Wilson had to compete against statewide just for this county.
How long is that AGC for, did you say?
It's so it was technically supposed to be 2 years with an option for a 1-year extension. Okay. So I automatically factor in the 1-year extension because I lost a year, and so it's October 2027. So it's a quick yeah.
That's good timing though for RCDP. New RCDP, and writing those as matching each other.
Yeah.
A great storyline.
I like it. Yeah.
RCDP's Regional Conservation Partnership Program through the federal funding agency, which allows us kind of similarly, actually, to, never thought about it that way, to create sort of a funding pool that we get to define what partners can use it and what geographic area it will serve. And SHC has done 2 of these now that serve all the land trusts in Western North Carolina that are doing NRCS funded agricultural easements. And so it doesn't, you still have to apply to the pot, once you get that allocation.
Which is the same with AGC, yeah.
You still have to go through the normal application processes, which is a huge pain because it's an administrative burden, but it's creating, it's a 50 million cap on the allocation that you can get. It used to be 10 million, and so that's what we have about 9 million pot right now. But it means that all those land trusts are only competing within their own region, as opposed to competing with farms in the Piedmont that might have 100% prime soils and they're just going to outrank us every time. It kind of allows us to create an area, just like the AGC allows you to create an area that no one else is competing within the zone. And we've been talking for a long time that when this RCDP expires, that we would expand it and collaborate so that it would include Haywood County Soil and Water 2, other soil and water conservation districts that are holding easements in our service areas in Western North Carolina, so that we could reach for the bigger money in it, and also all of us have access to that and not take us out of, because the state funding pool for general federal funding for ag easements gets $2 million a year. And it's just
it's ridiculous.
And they get something like 60 million in asks.
Yeah. So and the mountain counties just don't compete well across the state because of prime soils and the size of the properties. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. And in terms of timeline, it's such a saver. So we just submitted our first application to NCDA for the AGZ funding, and we heard back that it was approved within a month and a half.
Whoa.
Rather than a year.
Yes.
So it's huge. So it's a good resource. Hopefully they keep offering it. I think they reduced the amount that it was funded this past year because it took a huge chunk of the funding last year.
Right.
We'll see.
Interesting.
So
Also,
Does anybody have any questions about the North McDarris Ridge?
The who? No, this question, anybody?
We can write Michelle here.
It's a great project. Again, so, maybe if we have time for some of the newer people, and we can talk about budgets and how you come up with these numbers and things like that, because that was something when I started, didn't get a total grasp on what the money and the background you just heard about chasing down these different funds. It's complicated. And it's a learning process for us, so.
Hope you get well soon, Michelle.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
See ya.
So, I don't know if we have time to talk about this meeting, but at some point, like that, just that budget number that Michelle had up there, where does that come from? What does that mean?
Yeah,
What's in that number?
yeah, Justin, go for it.
Yeah, so, we don't have her slides.
It's like
I mean, I can try and-
$240,000.
We could do it with, what if
Gotta-
we do it with Pinnacle Knot instead?
I can share.
We
I'm,
thought you were gone.
no, I just was, the conversation was
You guys want to stick around?
going
for-
to a different topic, so I just wanted to make sure that other people didn't have questions about this.
So 5 minutes we got left here to kind of talk about that, if it's of interest to people, to kind of see how projects are funded, where the money's coming from, going to. So for instance, this total project budget, what's in that, Michelle? What does that number mean?
So that is the donated value of the conservation easement, which we've estimated based on comparable sales in the landscape and what we think the conservation easement would be valued at, plus the transaction costs. So that's what's rolled into basically the value of the easement plus the transaction costs is the total project budget.
And transaction costs include things like the survey, the
Yeah.
title work, the appraisal, well, not necessarily,
Site assessment,
but often, environmental site assessment, and then,
stewardship contribution,
right.
and
So that's
the-
separate,
we don't fund.
that's 73,000 is in addition to the 42,000 that they're asking.
The
Or is that
42,000
included?
is part of the 7.
This is included. So there's another 30,000 in there in these transaction costs, the surveys, that kind of stuff.
That's being covered by the private philanthropic donor.
Yeah, the total transaction costs are $73,200. That includes stewardship contribution, title work, survey, environmental site assessment, and then administrative time for SAHC to manage the project. And so the two items that the Land Conservation Advisory Board is not able to cover are the stewardship and the admin time. And so those are the costs that are being covered by the private philanthropic donor. And then everything else that are direct costs is the 42.2, and that's what we're asking the board to cover.
Right, so just so you all understand, the budget, 223,000, that's the donated value. That's not actually somebody pulling money out of the pocket and pay for us. This, and you come up with that number for what purpose? The donated value, is that so that the landowner can have something to write off from a tax standpoint? Here in this project, they're not asking for any funds for conservation easement, which is usually a big, part of somebody that don't put a conservation easement on the property, they get reimbursed for some value, half the value of the land.
I do want to go back to the why of that, though. It's much more than just their tax purposes. That is an appraisable asset that they are fully donating. That's like real cash value that they are deciding not to be paid. And so it is leverage. It's like real money that is, while it's not being transacted, it's still a value that the county is getting this value out of this project while only investing.
Right.
So it's showing that it's a good deal.
Right.
This much
Yeah.
money. Yeah.
Every
Sometimes,
conservation easement has a dollar value assigned to it, and most landowners want to get paid for that, at least in part. And so we do count the donation as real dollar values of the project.
And that appraisal is based on the fact that someone was to pay fair market value for it, for example, that's what it maybe would cost.
So easements are tricky to value. It's a very niche thing, but
So it's not based on that.
so an appraisal, to appraise an easement, they do a fair market value appraisal of the land at large. And that's the starting fee simple value, right? And that's if the landowner were to just sell the land. But then they do an after the easement value, so once it's encumbered, what's that land left over value? And then the difference in those two is the appraised easement.
And is that what we're
That's-
seeing the difference? Okay, so that's the 223.
Well, the
It's
223
150.
also includes the estimated transaction costs, so.
With the transaction
Yeah.
costs,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
So
Yeah, we
typically,
think the conservation easement might be worth for this project around $150,000.
Right.
And that's an estimate, of course, and she's gonna get an appraisal.
And that's what we call the easement value.
right, so
The
that.
difference in those two numbers, that's the gap. And so depending on, this is a donation easement. If you're talking about an easement acquisition where you're actually purchasing some of the development rights, it's a percentage of that easement value that you're able to compensate the landowner
I
with.
just wanted to confirm, so when I look at the total project value, what does that mean?
Right. Yeah, no, good question. Very good question.
And I just want to go back to clarify for anybody who ever listens to this in posterity, that the reason I hedged when you said if you were to sell this, the easement is a set of restrictions effectively. And so what you would sell is the land that's restricted by the easement, and that's why I wanted to clarify that the way those restriction values are, because you don't really sell just the restrictions.
So what's interesting in the conversation too is that, and I think we had a conversation on this years ago, is that, okay, so let's say for simplicity's sake, this land right now, so you can sell it to a developer for $100,000. Well, now you put an easement on it for the limited income development. That takes the developer out of the question, right? So the value would go down, right? Now, how much would that go down? How's that number? Is it half the value? Still value. Someone will buy that land with the easement on it to farm it or whatever. So is it 50%? Or, you know, how do you determine the value that they're giving up, you know? And is it typically you see in projects, is it 50%? Is it?
There's a broad range, and it has a lot to do with access and then how steep it is, like how expensive is it gonna be to put in roads and to develop this. I've seen, the highest one that I have seen myself was 85%. The easement was worth 85% of and that was on Hog
Yeah.
which this board participated in. I know Mainspring had a kerfuffle with the federal government because they would not approve
Good federal
an
kerfuffle.
over 90% easement value on the
So
land.
clarify that just for a second, please. So you're saying 85%, it's $100 for this land, if you just sold it outright. So there's 85% still remaining in the value.
No reduction. So you got 15% of, so you got, it's $15. If it was worth $100, now it's worth $15 after its protections. Yeah.
It's gonna be,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's extreme. Usually it's not that, but
Yeah.
that's a good example of how it varies.
Yeah.
And it also varies in the market.
Many conservation easements, we estimate the range of to be somewhere between like 50 to 70% is the average
That's what I
I see.
of
And I would
the
say
full
on
market value.
farms, it tends to be like 60-ish%, just because it's gonna be more developable. It's probably got good access because the farmer needs access to markets. So farms tend to be a little more valuable than steeper mountain land.
Mhm.
Good, so we're all getting all education here.
Yeah.
And these things will keep coming up, and feel free to call another board member, call Ariel, you know, because you go through that evaluation process, you know, things that come up, and you just pick up the phone, send an email, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, we're the staff point people, but if you have project specific questions on these two projects, feel free to reach out to Jess and Michelle, because otherwise it'll be us then just reaching out to Jess and Michelle. So like, skip the middleman part. But also, yes, always ask us questions. We're here to
Do
help.
we copy you when we send an email? Do we copy you or do we just?
You don't have to. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, and that's a good piece. This last point of meeting is, okay, open meetings law. The reply all when we're all, you know, so when I send an announcement out or communication out, I send it to everybody. But if you have a question back to me, reply just to me. Because when you keep replying all, and this isn't something that's happened with you guys, it's happened with Tech Advisory Board, but when you reply all, it becomes a discussion. And then you reply all, and then you reply all, and and then it becomes kind of this discussion. So best practice, if you are able, reply to the individual, and the hope is that this individual is collecting all the information and we'll get it back to you. But yeah, that's just kind of a sticky area with board communication, because you're all on there, and then we keep going. Is it a public meeting all of a sudden? Let's not get there.
That's why I get past with a million emails.
I know, right? Yes, great. So apologies for all of the we've done a lot of catch up today and a lot of catch up via email, but hopefully we're gonna get back rolling.
And just know that all of those email communications are subject to public records requests.
Yes.
So anything you wouldn't want blown up in a poster or in a news article, don't type that in an email. That's your free tip from me.
That's just good. Yeah, that's a tip from our PR department.
It happened to our director in one of her previous jobs, and that sort of stuff.
Oh dear.
The next step would be an invite to a visit. We, as the board, have always thought at least one person from the board should attend.
Dream World 2.
Yeah.
So that you're not relying on just one person.
That way the public knows that we are involved enough that we actually put eyes on the ground, and we do share that. When you come back from that site visit at the next meeting before you vote, you can say things that would be relevant, and so.
And our process for determining that, should it be you and Michelle just figuring out maybe 2 or 3 availability days?
Yes.
And then we can
Yes.
make sure the landowners are available.
Yeah, it's that's what we do. Yeah, us landowners then to the board. Unless there are days of the week that never work for you guys, let us know. That's helpful. And
We have an item here for announcements and discussions. I think we kind of did that, right?
Yeah.
So the next item would be an adjournment.
Oh yeah.
Thank you very
just
much.
stay to adjourn.
Oh.
Just say yeah. Yeah, there you go.
We are adjourned. All right. Nice to meet you. And thank you, Ariel, for all that you've done.